The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Oh, he came in with that phony Louisiana accent for his family. He talked the talk. He didn't walk the walk. And ultimately, he was asked to walk out the door. And who wouldn't be willing to walk out the door for, hello, $54 million? Brian Kelly, the latest to be bought out. $169 million in buyout money for college football coaches. And we're not even through the month of October. Boy, I'll tell you, I've been fired 4 times. In the wrong business. The buyouts are great in college football. They're tremendous. And Brian Kelly probably will coach again, even though by LSU standards, he was a complete disaster. We'll get to that. That is now official from the school. They have fired Brian Kelly, and I think most people expected that after the showing that they had at home, one of the storied places to play, Tiger Stadium at night on Saturday night, and they got their doors blown off by Texas A&M 49-25. And we'll hear what Brian Kelly had to say after that game, and we will look at a column that I think is brilliant from Jeff Dellinger of Yahoo, who lays the whole thing out. So Louisiana with the governor really making the move. All right, Commanders playing tonight. The line has moved a little bit. The news over the weekend that we're going to see Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel active tonight. Deebo did not play last week against the Cowboys because of a heel injury. He's been bothered by that throughout the season, but has managed to play. Whereas Terry McLaurin, who had bragged in the offseason that he hadn't missed a game in 5 years, has now missed 4 games. And that's more than he has missed in his entire career. But the quad, I guess, is healthy enough for him to go tonight, and we'll see what he's got. It's going to be Marcus Mariota at quarterback. And, well, it's not a good spot, obviously, for the Commanders. Not just that they're not playing very well right now, particularly defensively, but the Chiefs have now found their stride, and that's bad. And all the hand-wringing about the 0-2 start, well, they're back on track right now. Have won their last 2 and are looking very stout offensively. So you brace for the worst. Yeah, what's the worst thing? You get to go to bed at halftime, right? I guess that's about the best part of that. Dan Quinn with some interesting things to say on Saturday in his last news conference of the week. If you remember, after the Dallas loss, I think most people would agree who have watched Dan Quinn over the last year and a half, this was the angriest we have seen him.
Injuries are not the reason that we lost. Others may talk about who we did have and didn't have today, and I'm here to say it doesn't matter who you have or who is out when you don't give yourself a real chance at it. From turnover margin to penalties to missed tackles and drops, Dallas beat us, and we beat ourselves as well. And we're the ones that got ourselves into the hole. We're the same ones that got to dig ourselves out. But make no mistake, we're not playing to the standard we've set. And like I said, dug ourselves into it. And so we're the only ones that will dig ourselves out. I'm sure you guys got questions regarding Jaden. He definitely wanted it back in. He'll get an MRI on his hamstring tomorrow. So I'll have a better update for you when I visit with you guys in the afternoon. I just don't want to say one way or another and not give you accurate info on that. So I wanted to make sure I was clear as we begin. But lots to dig into, and we play again in 8 days. We got a lot of things to get better at, and we're going to work our ass off to do that.
Dan, with those big plays keep happening, how frustrating, and first of all, why, I guess, and then, but just how frustrating is it that game after game they keep happening?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. We're going to look at everything, man. We are going to look at everything to, have a play that goes down the field and you throw over your head or a good battle. Like I can live with that one, but the ones of the big explosive plays that I can't put my finger on, that's a lot for us to dig into. If I had one specific reason, I'd say this or this, but yeah, we got, like I said, a lot to get better at, and it's definitely frustrating.
With Jaden, could he, if the score was closer, would he have gone back in? Did the score have anything to do with him staying out?
No. He definitely wanted to come back. But like I said, I'll have a better sense for you guys for tomorrow. I'll just be, guessing, and I don't want to do that. I'll give you updates as soon as I can.
So was Dan Quinn 8 days ago after they lost in Dallas, and we now know that Jaden Daniels is not going to play tonight, that it's going to be Marcus Mariota. We've also had time for the anger to subside, so now do you take the anger and use it as fuel tonight, or do you use it to move forward? And this was Quinn on that on Saturday.
I think the emotion part of it is like, that happens to me and probably to most people post-game right to there, and you want to dig in. And then eventually it's like, okay, digging in for the purpose of finding the solutions. It's one thing to, okay, here's what happened, and the next part underneath that is to say, and here's what we're going to do about it. And I think that's the part that you want to see and how they respond to that. Just bitching about it or talking about it doesn't change it in the way that you want to. So that's my space to say, all right, and this is what we're actually going to do. So that's why I would like referring to Candy's question, like to see the response at practice of what we were calling on. Okay, that's a good sign. And tightness and adversity that can cause that with people. I've seen it, and I've told that to everybody. Like wanting it badly, and coaches tighter, players tighter, and like that's the opposite of playing free and aggressive and fast. And so, how do you eliminate that? You work at first the mindset, but the techniques, and sometimes if that's less volume, to play faster and more. Sometimes we use the word like free, like it's not like recess, but there is a block that can take place that if you're not ready, that like, hey man, like it has to be clear-minded to attack and focus where you can not take long to process. So that's part of where I was at for the week.
So they moved on. They loosen up Sandy Baby version of Dan Quinn there as they look to get it going again tonight in Kansas City. But the injuries, you'd probably have to point to that among the factors. Sure, the schedule has been tougher, although we saw Dallas get blown up yesterday by Denver. It was a road game, but still. Dallas didn't have any problems scoring on Washington and didn't have any trouble, relatively speaking, shutting them down. Might have been different if Jaden was healthy in the second half, might have been able to lead the comeback, wasn't able to do this. But I would say you look at the 3-4 record, you'd have to point to injuries. And the Post actually did an analysis, and they found, this is interesting, they found the entire season last year, all of 2024, they missed a combined 92 games because of injuries. Through the first 7 games, and you add in what's expected tonight, including Jaden Daniels being out, that number will climb to at least 93. So basically halfway through the season this year, they will have had more injuries than they had all of last year. And also offensively, and this is huge, these numbers are interesting. At this time a year ago, when the Commanders were 5-2, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin had played 85% and 78% of the team's offensive snaps. This year, they have played just 69% and 34%. So Daniels goes from 85% to 69%, and McLaurin, I think even more importantly, goes from 78% to 34%. Obviously, a test of depth has not proven to be one that they've been able to pass.
Yeah, you don't know where your depth is until you're tested, right? And I think one of the spots that I felt like now is there, and I think some of it's due to Luke and to Jalen, is that receiver. Because when you get tested, are you ready when that opportunity comes? And I felt like that would be an example of those two. It wasn't a surprise. I knew what we had with Marcus, from that side, just kind of going back, through the offense and where we've been banged up on. On the defensive side with 3 ends, that's, I guess, different because it went like in layers down, and we're still in the middle of that to go. But I do know that, I like the way the guys are attitude and going, and you do gain from it. It's not ideal at all, but there is experience that happens, and you do find out a lot. Through the years, there's definitely been people that I've coached when the opportunity came, it's like, okay, that was the time he started playing and making an impact, and then it carries over. Not always in the same year, Nikki, but knowing, okay, we have one there. You don't look for that. It kind of changes the trajectory of their careers because they establish it. And so I think all of it matters.
That is the old next man up, and he's hoping he's got enough next men that he can hold things together. They're in the middle of a very, very tough stretch here. After Kansas City, they have a home game next week against Seattle, coming off a bye. Seattle's playing well, and then they get Detroit here. The only quote-unquote break would be when they go to Barcelona to face Miami, although Miami showed some life yesterday, so you just don't know. The other thing about last year versus this year, last year everything came together. It was great. So the brotherhood that they talked about was easy to execute. Yeah, hey, Jaden is great. Look at this. And they picked up some really good free agents. Why? Look at what they're getting from Bobby Wagner, and look at Zach Ertz, these old-timers still now, not so much. So the old brotherhood that Quinn is trying to keep together, not so easy this year.
When it's going really well, that's the time that you don't lean in on it and you don't find out a lot. It's the times that it gets the hardest that you lean in on it together. And what I've seen from practice, I'm pleased, knowing that this is the things I was calling on for the week. Would I be able to see that? Would we be able to deliver on that? And so during the week, there's brutal honesty that goes with it. And I want to see them respond. And if a team or a person doesn't, then you have red flags to say, okay, you hit the big emergency brake and nothing happened. You want to see players and people respond. And so what I saw was a response. And consistency would take care of things to go up and up and up. And so that's what I'm looking for from the team, because over the last 2 weeks, it certainly hasn't been to the standard that we want. So we address it, we say it, but I also want to see the response. And the first part that I could see was at practice. And so for 3 days, I've liked what I've seen. Now that has to carry into the ball game for us to play faster, more consistent, and more to capture our style that we want to be.
Now, to be fair, have you ever heard a coach say, we didn't look good at practice. I'm not optimistic going into the game? He's got to say that, right? I mean, he's got to say that we responded well to what happened in Dallas. But he's right. At the end, we're going to see tonight exactly where that carryover is. The big thing for the offense is that Terry McLaurin is back. And this is what he told reporters over the weekend about his return.
I've never dealt with that injury before, so I didn't really know what to expect. I just trusted the medical staff and everything just to try to stay according to the plan that was laid out for me. And as you go, I'm an explosive athlete, so a lot of things that are part of my game I need to feel that are 100% before I can put myself out there, because I'm not only hurting the team, but I'm hurting myself. So that's part of it as well, being able to accelerate and run by people and slam on the brakes. So that's my game, you know what I mean? So my injury hindered a lot of that, but I feel really good right now.
Okay, well, that's good news. And this is Kingsbury on having his big weapon back.
It's never easy when you have an extended amount of time off. Just building the rapport with the quarterback, any of the new wrinkles we put in the offense, things of that nature. But I expect him to pick back up quickly once he is out there full time. I think being in a year or two of the system, he at least had a pretty solid understanding of it. And so now it's just about getting his legs back, getting his wind back, and just getting a lot more reps with the quarterbacks.
Kingsbury, by the way, being mentioned for all these openings in college football. We'll get to that in a few minutes. As far as playing Kansas City goes, you look at the all-time records, pretty remarkable. They don't play all the time, of course. One's in the AFC and the other's in the NFC. But it's 1-10. Yeah, the last time that Washington beat Kansas City was 1983. 83 was that big year regular season. They got their doors blown off in the Super Bowl by the Raiders, but they set a record that year, 561 points, and they took care of the Chiefs that year. If you look back, and, you got to be old to remember this, but the first time they played turned out to be, I think, very much altering for the start of the George Allen era. Now, we know that George Allen took the Redskins to the Super Bowl in his second year, and they were actually favored against the Dolphins, who were undefeated at that time, remarkably. And they ran into a game plan that Allen couldn't overcome. They looked at Larry Brown who was the MVP of the league that year, led the league in rushing, and they said, if we stop him, we're going to force Billy Kilmer to beat us with his arm, and Kilmer couldn't do it. And the Redskins lost the game 14-7 to the Dolphins. But if you go back to the year before, the Redskins were 5-0. George Allen was on the cover of Newsweek with his slogan, "The future is now." And they went to Kansas City, favored, and they were ahead in this game. And I think it was in the first half, Charlie Taylor caught a touchdown pass, and he was tackled by Emmett Thomas. Emmett Thomas, who's also in the Hall of Fame. All three of those guys in the Hall of Fame. Emmett Smith, Emmett Thomas, and Charlie Taylor. But he tackled Charlie Taylor in the end zone. Taylor broke his ankle. And the Redskins wound up losing that game, and the offense just was never the same the rest of the year. Defense still really good. Over the hill gang, George Allen bringing in all his guys from the Rams, and they were good enough to make the playoffs. They had not made the playoffs since World War II, so that was huge. But if Charlie Taylor had stayed healthy that year, now they didn't have Sonny Jurgensen most of the year because he hurt his shoulder in the preseason. But Billy Kilmer did a decent job with them. He was not a great passer. But with the defense they had and the running game with Larry Brown, they could make things happen if they had a Hall of Fame receiver healthy. Unfortunately, Charlie Taylor was not. That team lost to San Francisco in the playoffs, made the Super Bowl the following year when Taylor was healthy. But there are many people to this day who look back on that 71 season and say if Charlie Taylor had stayed healthy that year, that team may have been a better team than the one that lost to Miami in the Super Bowl in 1973. We'll never know. And it's also what pro football is all about, is overcoming injuries, because everybody has them. And there's a 100% chance of injury if you play football, particularly in the National Football League. All right, coming up, we'll deal with the LSU mess over the weekend. There are some details on this which are so Louisiana. We'll talk about it and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
It must be great to be a highly successful college football coach. You know, it might be better to be a fired college football coach. The buyout money just this year alone will blow your mind. A lot of publicity a couple of weeks ago when Penn State made their move, and James Franklin was bought out for close to $50 million. 49.7 is the figure. Billy Napier bought out in Florida, $21.2 million. Mike Gundy, who had been at Oklahoma State for like 20 years, $15 million buyout. Even Trent Dilfer, who I didn't bet you didn't even know was a college football coach. He was the Baltimore Ravens quarterback when they won their first Super Bowl, went to ESPN, wanted to coach, went to UAB, was terrible, and they finally got rid of him. They had to pay him $2.4 million to leave. Brian Kelly, the total number is going to be close to $54 million. $54 million. And I still go back to what his predecessor, Ed Orgeron, said when they fired him only 2 years after he won the national championship. Old Ed. Ed can't get it done. So we got to get rid of Ed. 2 years after he won the national championship. And he said, well, when they told me what the buyout money was, I said, how soon do you want me to leave out that door? So, and his was supposedly $17 million. Old Ed. I mean, the narrative was if Ed Orgeron can win a national championship at LSU, anybody can win it. And Brian Kelly, boy, he's been under constraints at Notre Dame. The academics, they don't have the money to pay the players that he's going to be able to get. Of course, it hadn't even come in yet. Remember, he went there 4 years ago, so they didn't have the NIL yet. But everybody kind of knew it was coming, and at LSU, football is king. There's stories of Governor Huey Long leading the marching band at LSU years and years ago. All the King's men, Huey Long, yeah, he was that deep into LSU football because it's religion down there. And I've never been to a Saturday night game there, but I'm told it's wild. It's absolutely wild. I mean, people not only show up for the game, they show up to tailgate. There are stories that, I've never seen this, but I've heard that 100,000 people show up without tickets just to be a part of the scene, just to tailgate there. That's how wild it is. And the expectation is Tigers are going to win. Go Tigers. So they got rid of the Go Tigers guy, And they bring in Brian Kelly, who's from Massachusetts, right? Yeah, he grew up in Massachusetts. He's had a long coaching career and did a good job at Notre Dame. No question about that. Didn't win a national championship. Got his team to what at that time was the national championship game, the BCS championship. They got their doors blown off by Alabama, but he got them there. And so this guy from Massachusetts, who's been coaching in Indiana for like 12 years at Notre Dame, goes to a basketball game just after he's introduced as the head coach and tries to fire up the crowd this way.
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
Did he say it's a great day to be here as a Tiger with my family? Yeah.
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
With my family.
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
I'm here with my family. Okay, well, all right. So he's bought all in. He's a Cajun now. He's down there in Louisiana. He's going to be like Coach O and get everybody fired up about LSU football. Well, things don't go exactly as he plans it, but he's building. And so last year, after they lose to Florida in November, essentially eliminating them from the chance to get into the new playoff, which is now 12 teams. Not to worry, says Brian Kelly.
We're taking receipts, and we'll see at the national championship. This team's building. We're excited about them, and we're really proud of them.
Well, okay. So they don't make the playoff last year, but don't worry. We're coming back. We're going to pay what it takes. We're bringing back the quarterback, $20 million to make our run. This is it. Year 4. Year 4, we win the national championship. No, they don't. Facing Texas A&M at home in a game that he absolutely has to win. Has to win this game. He doesn't get it done. And Brian Kelly's team was absolutely embarrassed in the second half against Texas A&M. They wound up losing the game 49-25. Kelly's record now 34-14 in those 4 seasons. 14 losses in 4 years. That doesn't cut it at LSU, especially when you make big promises that, okay, we had our growing pains. Now, remember, he had Jaden Daniels, generational quarterback. He went 8-4 in Daniels' Heisman Trophy season. He lost 3 the year before that. They go into this game against Texas A&M ranked 82nd in scoring offense, 96th in total offense, and 122nd in passing offense with a quarterback who was a Heisman Trophy candidate going into the season. So they lose this game badly to Texas A&M, 49-25, and obviously, and I'll give him credit for this, he didn't blow up as he did in a couple of other instances over the past 4 years where he'd slam his fist on the table. No, he maintained his composure, but I think at that point on Saturday night, he knew he was a dead man walking.
Brian, you talked about this being an all-in year for the team, and it hasn't really gone that way. What level of concern do you have for yourself with the faith the program should have for you?
I mean, that's out of my hands. It's impossible for the head coach that's been here, for 4 years and 35 years of doing this, to think anything else but this is my responsibility, and we've got to get it turned around. And that's not my decision in terms of whether I'm here or not, but that's what I will do as a head coach that's been doing it for over 3 decades. When things are not going well from a football standpoint, the head football coach has to be agile enough and able to make those changes and find out what we need to do to get our football team to play better.
Boy, he sounds a lot different than he did 4 years ago, right?
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
Great day to be a Tiger. No, Saturday was not a great day to be a Tiger. And come Sunday, oh, yeah, this is where it really gets juicy. Ross Dellinger is with Yahoo, and he covers college football, specifically the SEC. He's based, I think he lives in Louisiana, and I've seen him on Dan Patrick. I've read his stuff on Yahoo, and he's got the breakdown on how this all went down. It was so crazy with this blowout going on Saturday night that it was like they were passing the collection plate in the high-level suites at Tiger Stadium, where the high rollers go, including high-level political figures. They were, as he said, passing around the proverbial church basket. How much would you commit to the buyout? They found money to build the roster, over $13 million in collection just for this year to bring back what was ranked number one with a Heisman Trophy quarterback. Yeah, or at least a candidate for that. They now have the 98th ranked unit in total offense, a team that before Saturday joined North Carolina as the only power conference program not to score at least 25 points in the game.
It's a great night to be a Tiger.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm here with my family.
Got it. They only got to 25 with a garbage time touchdown on Saturday night. On top of paying Kelly $54 million in the buyout. Wait till you hear the breakdown on that. They got to buy out the staff, too. So this could be $100 million. You know how poor the state of Louisiana is? Well, not for this. Not for this, because the governor was very much involved in this, according to what Ross Dellinger is reporting here at Yahoo. He says, as most things go in South Louisiana, politics is involved. The decision to fire Kelly extended to the state's top official, Jeff Landry, a brash first-term Republican who, you should know, tweeted this on Sunday night after Texas A&M bludgeoned LSU, saying, essentially that we have to evaluate everything here. He says, making matters more complicated is the fact that LSU is searching for a permanent university president. The school announced 5 finalists earlier this week, and a decision is expected soon, a move that rests mostly with Landry and the board itself. Now, here's where we get to the money. This is crazy. No lump sum of the $54 million is required, but it can be paid in monthly installments of about $800,000 over several years. Can you imagine Brian Kelly logging on to his checking account just to see how much is in there so they can, cover the electric bill for the month? Oh, yeah, good. LSU made the direct deposit of $800,000. And we're going to get another $800,000 deposit next month, and the month after that, and the month after that, and the month after that. According to what Dellinger has here, it was to the point where one leading LSU figure noted Sunday that Kelly couldn't explain why his players weren't playing harder. He'd lost the locker room, says another person. We are soft, says a third. By the way, when he got there, he fired the strength coach. Where did the strength coach go? Texas A&M, where his team bullied around LSU on Saturday night. The interim coach is Frank Wilson, but he's got his work cut out for him because Frank Wilson has a bye week to kind of, figure out what the hell's going on here and the media things that he has to do and others. And then he's got to take his team to Alabama. They're going to be double-digit underdogs in that. The athletic director, he's still there. This is the athletic director, Scott Woodward, who has hired this guy. I mean, doesn't he have to go too? This is what Ross Dellinger has in his story. Woodward himself was a former elite political lobbyist hired to join the university by then LSU president Mark Emmert. Yeah, Mark Emmert. Remember him? Yeah, he's the one who fired Bobby Knight. Woodward, Emmert, and a crew of boosters eventually hired a man named Nick Saban in 1999. Well, yeah, Saban is the one that set the bar high and, made people at LSU go, well, why don't we have the next Nick Saban? More importantly, why didn't they keep Nick Saban? Of course, Nick Saban wanted to try the NFL, so that's when he jumped to the Miami Dolphins for a couple of years, which didn't work out, and then he went to Alabama, and the rest is history. But this is a complete disaster for a school that expects national championships. Les Miles was fired in 2007 after winning a national championship. Ed Orgeron was fired in 2019 after winning a national championship. And Brian Kelly didn't even come close to that, and the buyout is going to have them paying him. Can you imagine? Whoever has to push the send on that $800,000 a month payment, what that must feel like for a guy who's being paid not to coach there, and not to mention the rest of the staff where the buyouts have to come. Here's where the breakdown is, by the way, on this money for all the coaches. With Kelly at 53, with Franklin at 49.7, Napier 21, $169 million. Maybe I mentioned that already. I mean, it's just mind blowing, and I don't even know what you do about it. I don't know if when you hire the next coach, especially if you got somebody with credentials, I mean, how can you work it out that, if we decide to get rid of you, it's only going to cost us, $7 or $8 million. Heck, I remember this. Here's a quaint notion for you. Ralph Friedgen, who I believe is one of the 3 best coaches that Maryland has ever had in football. I think he was on Bobby Ross's staff. He may have even been a better coach. Probably was a better coach at Maryland. Bobby Ross stayed longer. Bobby Ross left after the Len Bias tragedy. They had, who was the guy? One time they had Bear Bryant, but he only stayed a year. There's a guy named Jim Tatum who won what is the only national championship that Maryland has ever won and probably ever will win. They actually finished 9-0 during the regular season, lost the Orange Bowl, but the championship was awarded for the regular season in 1953. And Jerry Claiborne, who came in, I think 71 or 72, and built a team that was bowl bound most years. They had Randy White, probably the best player ever to play at Maryland. But Ralph Friedgen, right up there. He's on that Mount Rushmore of Maryland football coaches all time. And I think you have to leave Bear Bryant out because he only coached 1 year with the Terps. But he had great success early on. I mean, it was remarkable. He came in 2001, and the bar was make a bowl game. That's it. Have enough wins to make a bowl game. Have 6 wins. That's all you need. He wins 10 his first 3 years. They go to the Orange Bowl the first year. They were a consistent bowl team during his 10 years at Maryland. They made bowls 7 times. I think they won 5 of them. He was tremendous as a coach, and he had a bad year in 2008. He won 2 games that year. And Debbie Yao, I think it was her last year as athletic director, if I'm not mistaken, she went to Governor Martin O'Malley to see if she could get the governor to pay the buyout, which was $2 million, a $2 million buyout. And O'Malley said, no, we're not spending that kind of money on a football coach there. Sorry. Ralph comes back the next year. They win 9 games. He's coach of the year in the ACC, and he gets fired. And then they brought in a series of clowns, including Randy Edsall, who was eventually fired. Those kind of coaches that came in. DJ Durkin, who they had to fire because of his overzealous strength coach, who killed one of the players. Trying to force him to be a tough guy when he had heat stroke and things like that. So I just look at this and I go, man, that's just crazy. And even with these buyouts, it still doesn't come close to what Jimbo Fisher got from Texas A&M, $77 million a couple of years ago to leave. And as Ed Orgeron said, yes, tell me what door you'd like me to leave from, and I'll leave right away, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Well, just absolutely nuts. More on the Commanders game tonight and how John Tesh came up with Round Ball Rock. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630. So I remember a story that Sam Huff told me when he was playing with the New York Giants and they played the Baltimore Colts. And the New York Giants, with Sam Huff, who went to the Hall of Fame, beat the Colts. And Huff was saying to his teammates in the locker room, yeah, so what? We beat the Colts. We knocked out their quarterback. George Shaw didn't play. Some guy named Unitas came in. What's the big deal? So I look at Michael Jordan making his debut 41 years ago today against the Washington Bullets, as a matter of fact. And the Bulls won the game, but I don't know how many people walked away from that saying, I think I've just seen the greatest basketball player who ever played. Yeah, well, they did. And the excitement in that draft in 1984 was not about Michael Jordan. He went number 3. Hakeem Olajuwon went number 1 to the Rockets. Hardly a bad pick. They won 2 titles with him. Would have been better if they would have picked Jordan, obviously, but they picked Olajuwon. And Sam Bowie was taken number 2 by the Portland Trailblazers. You had to have a big man in those days, even though there were doubts about the health of Bowie, who had missed an entire year at Kentucky because of a leg that never really healed properly. And I don't know who gave the physical, but the Blazers were so desperate to have size that they took Sam Bowie, and the rest is history. Jordan goes to the Bulls. They win 6 championships, and the Portland Trailblazers had a very disappointing big man on their hands. As the story goes, Stu Inman, who was the general manager of the Blazers going into that draft, called Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight had coached Jordan during the Olympics, the 1984 Olympics. And Knight later said that Jordan was the greatest team athlete in the history of sports, and aside from Jack Nicklaus, is the best athlete ever. I mean, you can argue golf versus basketball, who knows. But, yeah, I mean, he was in love with Michael Jordan, and Inman said to him, well, I know he's a great player, but we need a center. And as the story goes, Bobby Knight said to Inman, we'll play Jordan at center. And probably would have been a better move. So, it's funny just to look back on those things. All right, Commanders, 10.5-point underdogs tonight in Kansas City, was 12.5, and maybe with the news that Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel are going to be back, that the line has moved 2 points because of that. But it's a tall task, and they're facing a Kansas City team that is now hitting its stride. They started off the year 0-2, and, oh, God, they're old, forget it, the run is over. And here they are, still ticking along, and big double-digit favorites tonight. The defense for Washington has been terrible. It's been bad. And Joe Whitt, defensive coordinator, with his media session last week, has gone with the KISS philosophy. Keep it simple, stupid.
We're paring some things down to any calls that had layers to it. The main focus right now is to speed up the play, okay? If there's anything that's causing any hesitation, let's speed up the play with limiting the layers on the calls. Or we looked at every call, okay, which calls are giving up any explosives, which calls aren't. Even if a call might be better in certain situations, how can we get them playing fast? So that's what we're going to do moving forward.
It's the old read and react. Like when you see it, don't hesitate. Go for it. And if you're more familiar with what you're doing defensively, you're going to move faster. That's the one adjustment that he's at least telling you what they're going to do. But this is a guy who came in here last year preaching turnovers. They were not great with turnovers last year. They didn't turn the ball over themselves offensively, which helped them. But now they're near the bottom of the league. And when I say near the bottom of the league, they're tied for 29th in turnover margin, -5. I've told you this many times during that 83 season when they set the record for most points. They were +43 in a 16-game schedule. So less than halfway through a season, they are -5. The only teams that are worse, ironically, the Ravens. They haven't been good at takeaways either. And the Jets, who finally won their first game yesterday in a comeback against Cincinnati. So, as Whitt says,
there were some plays this last game that should have been intercepted, and we just got to go get them, and we're working every drill, trust and believe. We're working every drill because like I said, I've been in the league 19 years, and I've never had been in a defense where we haven't produced the ball, and we have to produce the ball. I mean, that's what we've done for a high clip, and it's just the confidence to go get it, and then once you go get, catch it and go score with it. So we're working every drill to get it done, and it'll start to show. I have full confidence that it will.
I hope so, but so far, even all last year really didn't really show itself, and then this year they're bad. They're near the bottom of the league, -5 in turnovers. The Kansas City story, of course, is the Patrick Mahomes story. Cliff Kingsbury, who by the way is being mentioned for a number of these openings, including LSU. Now, how he would deal with the NIL and all that other stuff, we'll see. But one thing we know he can do, he can develop quarterbacks. And he knows quarterbacks. And this is his view of what we've seen, not just this year with Patrick Mahomes, but what we've seen throughout his career.
The competitive stamina is unbelievable. When you look at every year he started, they've been to at least the AFC Championship. They played in all the Sunday nights, the Monday nights, so the tougher schedule, played all the first-place schedules. And just to be able to do that each year and get up for those games and have that level of consistency is just incredible. I think that's what I've been most impressed obviously the humility, the type of person he is, everybody knows, just phenomenal human being, but just the competitive stamina each year to just saddle back up and do it over and over and over and play in these big games and find ways to win has just been incredible.
You know, Nick Saban says the biggest enemy of success is success. There's a natural reaction to success where you sit back and go, I've done it. No, you got to come back and do it year after year after year, and that's what they're doing. It's remarkable, and I've seen it with Washington. I've talked to Joe Jacoby about this, and by the way, Jake has made it from I think it's 52 down to 34 for the seniors committee. They got to eventually get him to 9. Once he gets to 9, he'll be among the finalists, and hopefully this year we'll finally get in. We'll see. But we were talking about the success that they had early in his career. His second year, they went to the Super Bowl and won. His third year, they went to the Super Bowl and lost. They had a team that won the division in 1984, and they lost a game to that was a game they lost to the Chicago Bears here. And then 1985, Joe Theismann broke his leg. It was out for the year. 86, they get to the NFC Championship game. 87, they win the Super Bowl. But 88, they had a losing season. And he said the reason was they were fat and happy that they had all this success over that first period of time. They were finally starting to make some money and, raising families, a lot different than the hungry kids that came in 1981. He was part of that rookie class, undrafted, by the way. And, he said they started to slide back. This is why I've been just amazed to this day at what the Buffalo Bills did with Marv Levy, who's now 100 years old, that he took them to 4 straight Super Bowls. They overcame the great disappointment year after year getting back, and that's been part of the Kansas City Chiefs' success the other way. And when they lost the Super Bowl as badly as they did last year, you might think that that might give them the kind of the exit strategy. Like, okay, we're at the end here. It's all over. Kelsey's old, and he's hanging around with getting married to Taylor Swift, and that no, they're back and doing their thing. And defensively, Kingsbury has got to worry, especially Marcus Mariota. I expect him to run a lot tonight. I think he might be running for his life, and part of the reason is going to be Chris Jones.
There's certain game records that we'll recognize as staff early in the week and be like, hey, how are we going to handle it this week? And then try to put a good plan in place. He's one of those guys. I think the thing most impressive about him is just the kind of the big moments he has. He tends to step up in fourth downs or fourth quarters or overtime. I mean, when they really need to play, he's the guy that makes it. And so it's hard to prepare for that. But he's a tremendous player, and we'll try to have the best plan in place we can to try and slow him down if possible.
Well, one thing they have to be able to do is run the football. And I don't know if Bill Krosky-Merritt has reached the point of, okay, the league has figured him out, but he was really bottled up by Dallas, and they got to be looking at that. He had at one point earlier this season something like 7.9 yards a carry. I think it was 2.9 in the last game. The other thing is they're afraid to put him out there on passing downs. He has caught a couple of passes, but they don't really like him as a pass blocker. And getting a running game established is going to be big tonight. That's going to be huge. Yes, they got their weapons back in McLaurin and Samuel, but they're going to have to be able to run the ball, and they're going to have to be able to keep the Chiefs off balance with guys like Chris Jones, who's going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, Adrian Peterson will get there. He's one of the all-time leading rushers in the NFL, and at one point was talking about passing Emmitt Smith. He's 40 years old. That's not going to happen. And it looks like he's having some real problems right now. He was arrested again over the weekend in Sugar Land, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. And he was taken into custody early Sunday morning, charged with DWI and unlawful carrying of a weapon. He was arrested earlier this year on similar DUI charges just hours after leaving Minnesota's 2025 draft party. Got into a fight with a man over a poker game earlier this summer and tried to cash in on the skirmish after signing a celebrity boxing contract. According to TMZ, his first fight is supposed to be against Baby Joe Castaneda in May at the Joker Star in Houston. He needs cash. This is a guy who made over $100 million in his career. And he rushed for almost 15,000 yards and 120 touchdowns, played 15 years, 10 years in Minnesota, and that's part of the problem. he had an enormous contract with Minnesota, one of the biggest ever given to a running back. He missed most of one season after it was discovered that he had beaten his child. His child had shown up in the emergency room with some pretty serious injuries, including to his testicles. And that's when, they talked about using a switch and all that. It was a big firestorm, maybe, 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. He wound up here for a couple years, actually played pretty well into his mid-30s and was trying to keep it going because he needed the cash. He had taken out this big loan and defaulted on it and owed, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars. It was just crazy. Tried to make a comeback after sitting out the 2022 season. In 2023, didn't work out. He was 38 years old at the time, would have been the oldest running back ever to play in the Super Bowl era. That is really a sad story. And he was a good player here, but when Ron Rivera came in, you'd think a guy who stresses defense might want a running back who could move the chains. He knew he was done, and he got rid of him. Surprised a lot of people, but Peterson was out, and now it looks like. And I've read about where there's been he's lost court cases where they've had to repossess cars and houses and things like that. It really is remarkable that someone like that was not able to have somebody handle his money for him, and that, it just, you shouldn't go broke making $100 million. It just doesn't seem possible to do it, but obviously he did it. And then there's this, and this could be one that would be a landmark case. Now I'm sure there's going to be an appeal on this, but a former South Carolina State football player, Robert Gathers. I believe he's the brother of Jumpy Gathers, who played for the Redskins during their last Super Bowl run in 1991. This is Robert Gathers, and a jury found that he is due $18 million. They found the association with the South Carolina State football program was negligent in warning him about the long-term effects of concussions. He played there long time ago. They were not talking about concussions at this time. Trust me, I was in college at the time. Played defensive end 1977 to 1980. He's going to get $10 million as a result of the civil trial. His wife is due $8 million for the loss of consortium. He was diagnosed, this is Robert Gathers, diagnosed with dementia in 2017, and physicians who testified at the trial said he displays symptoms of CTE, which, by the way, they can't test for until after you pass away. So they're saying he's got symptoms of that, but struggles with memory loss, can't hold a job, has difficulty with day-to-day tasks. They allege that the NCAA knew about concussion risks associated with football since 1933, but didn't inform coaches or players until after his career was over. His lawyer is saying this is a landmark case. He argued that the South Carolina State held standards in line with head injury knowledge at the time. This is what the school is saying, that they held the head injury knowledge at the time, but that did not cause his health issues. He was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, never played with them, wound up on injured reserve. But if this case is upheld, if the $18 million judgment is upheld, this is going to open the door for an awful lot of players. I mean, think of the number of players who played prior to the knowledge that they now have with concussions. And I don't think they know everything, by the way, either, because I'm watching the game last night between the Steelers and the Packers, and a whole bunch of these Packers are wearing those soft cap helmets that they wear, the thing that they put over the helmet. I don't really know what that does. The league says that they have research that says it cuts down on concussions. Who knows? The brain is in a fluid inside the skull, and when there is a collision, the brain collides with the skull. And over and over again, you may not have necessarily concussions, but over the course of time, the number of hits to the head are going to add up. So here's a case of $18 million being awarded, that it is due to be awarded anyway, pending appeal, from the NCAA. They are not going to want to open the door for this stuff. And I'm surprised that they didn't make a very quiet settlement with this so that this would not stand up as what may turn out to be a landmark case. Very interesting to follow. And the league, the NFL has done at least on their end, a very good job of circling the wagons on this stuff. If you follow, some of these suits that have been filed by players, the league finds a way not to pay them, and they're basically saying, you need to out-lawyer us, and who has the resources to do that? And the reason is they don't want to set a precedent. If one guy gets X amount of dollars, the next guy is going to come along and say, okay, this is a landmark case. This is what I'm due as well. So it's not getting a lot of play right now, but this could be enormous for the NCAA if this is upheld on appeal. That a former player in college is saying that, hey, you were negligent in telling me about concussions, which they had knowledge of back to 1933, but in the late 1970s, you let me go out there. And players, I'm sure, were playing with concussions. It was like you came over to the sidelines and they asked how many fingers you were holding up. If you're holding up 4 and they said 3, like close enough, you went back in the game. And the smelling salts and all the other stuff. And now obviously that doesn't happen, but is this going to cut down on the long-term effects? We don't know. It doesn't appear that way. Let's put it that way. All right, got a game tonight. Wrap up of that tomorrow. I will have a full recap after staying up late to watch it. I may be a little sleepy, but we soldier on. Bram is next. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.